All right, welcome. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to our next webinar in our Digging In series, where we talk more about the themes and ideas that we're exploring in our monthly newsletter. And so today I have with me two special guests whom I'll be introducing in just a few minutes. But I would like to go ahead and talk about a few housekeeping things to begin with. So again, we are the Teaching with Primary Sources Southern Region at Middle Tennessee State University. And you can follow along by checking out our newsletter, our Digging In album on the TPS Southern Region group, and following us on the TPS Teachers Network by going to this link or using this QR code right here. I also want to remind everybody that we are in our last few days where we are accepting registration for our first ever TPS Southern Regional Conference, which will be held in Nashville, May the 12th through 13th at Tennessee State Library and Archives. I believe that Sam and Jeff will also be there with us, as well as our other sub-awardees, and all of them will be talking about their projects in variously organized panels, and there'll be really great networking opportunities, and it is free. So if you are interested, you can email us and we will send you this link. And but make sure you get that interest in really quickly. Lastly, we would like your feedback. I'm going to return to this slide at the conclusion of our webinar so that you can fill out your survey form and get your credits for PD. All right, now I am going to share my screen for a moment to show everybody the newsletter for this month. Now, as usual, you can find our most recent newsletter by simply going to our website and clicking on the button that says newsletter. And so the most recent one will always be listed at the very top. So if you go to April 2026, our theme is arts integration, which is why we have these two particular project partners joining us. And so we talk a little bit about arts integration and give you some of the resources on our website and the Library of Congress website where you can go to find arts-based primary sources. We have interviews here with both of our partners, and we're going to be having this in conversation form in a moment. So these are some wonderful images here from KidSmart that Sam will be talking about shortly. And then on our final page, we have our lesson idea for this month on Mormons and Migration, which will be presented at the end of our webinar by our graduate research assistant, Joshua Brown. And then finally, sometimes we have the feature, What's New in the TPS Teachers Network. And so we highlighted the lesson idea that another one of our graduate research students has just put up on the TPS Teachers Network about using the Historic American Buildings Survey, which is not specifically arts-based, but it is architecture-based. And it is one of my favorite collections at the Library of Congress website that you can use for a variety of different interdisciplinary subjects. So I am going to stop sharing and return to my screen so that I can welcome our guests. We have Samantha King here with us from KidSmart, and we have Jeff Scott from Troy University. And I am going to let each of them in turn tell us a bit more about their specific projects that are currently being funded by the TPS Southern Region. And then we'll have a conversation about the value of arts integration. So just because you are at the top of my screen, Sam, I'm going to let you go ahead and go first and introduce yourself and your project.
Okay, hi. I'm Samantha King, and I work for KidSmart, which is an arts and education nonprofit in New Orleans, Louisiana. And our primary focus is embedding professional teaching artists in public schools to collaborate with classroom teachers to integrate arts into the content, which means that both the academic content and arts skills and vocabulary are being learned at the same time. And it gives students an opportunity to express their understanding of the content using an art form, so or through an art form. So you can dance fractions, or you can. I'm a theater artist, so I do a lot of monologue and a lot of tableau and improvisation and script writing for them to explain in an artistic way what they've learned in the academic content. And so this project, I've been also working on a companion curriculum for social studies called Everyday People. Because I do a lot of social studies. I'm in a lot of social studies classrooms, and it's very much about how government works.
Mm,
And we don't have a lot of how citizenship works.
yeah.
We don't have a lot of how being a good neighbor works. And we've noticed, especially since COVID, and especially since screens, that kids have a hard time looking each other in the eye. They have a hard time being wrong, which is actually the point of school. Is you don't know everything, come figure it out. And they get they shut down if they don't have the right answer, and they're looking for. We want to make sure that they're learning to actually think and come up with ideas and try things and fail and try it again. And so feeling comfortable with just believing that their ideas are valuable and that other people's ideas are valuable is super important. So I wanted to use arts integration to sort of build their being able to collaborate skills, being able to problem solve skills, and during that's been going on for about 2 years. And our funder, we have a person who finds funds, which is wonderful. And we had been KidSmart had partnered before and been using primary sources about, I would say, there were maybe 3 funding cycles, but years ago. So she applied again for Everyday People, and I thought, oh, primary sources, that's interesting because everybody's story of the truth can be different. And so you've got this thing that you can examine from different angles and perspectives, and knowing what your own bias is, and listen to other people's thoughts about what might be. And it's just turned out to be a really interesting thing. We are working with a cohort of 15 teachers. We do arts integrated activities with them once a month, and they take those back to their classrooms and do them with their children and come back and report to me how that's going, and if it's strengthening their classroom culture, if they're noticing that kids are working together better, sharing, that kind of thing. So that's basically what the outcomes of the project have been, and
Great.
we've really dived into some interesting things. Pictures on the Library of Congress and the TPS website are fabulous because they are primary sources of that. A picture doesn't lie, right? But it's really interesting what people take away from what that could
Yeah.
mean or what it does mean. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Great. Thank you so
sure.
much. Jeff, can you please introduce yourself and your project?
Yeah, absolutely. It was great hearing from Sam. Love what she had to say there. And so I'm director of civics education at Troy University, and so I lead the Experiencing America initiative behind me, as you see. And we have a wonderful partner in the American Village, which is located in Montevallo, Alabama, which is just south of Birmingham.
Mhm.
So my main office is actually at the American Village. I go to Troy occasionally. If you haven't been to the American Village in Alabama, it's more or less think of Colonial Williamsburg, something on a smaller scale of that, but an incredible space to do all kinds of great things. And so with Experiencing America, what I do is I do um, experiences for students, educators, and the community. And the tagline, and again, it's very new, developing as I'm going, but the tagline is forging civic strength through the lens of history. And one of the things, I taught at every level, elementary, middle school, high school, did professional learning, trained teachers. And one of the things that has always been an issue, and I've seen for many years in schooling, is that we separated civics and history too much. Students a lot of times do not have a true understanding if you don't teach whole history connected to civics education. If it's, what we try to do is get people to understand that, hey, we have policies and laws and stuff of that nature based on what's happened in our history.
Right, right.
And again, if you don't
Context.
understand that, then you have just a government class, you're really not internalizing it. And then if you just have a history class and you don't talk about, hey, these policies came about because of this, or, whatever, you don't have a connection. And so that's something I've always wanted to try to bring back together. And so, we have a big leadership camp for high school students. We have our Teacher Institute that we'll be doing this coming summer, which is Manifest Destiny this year, going west, looking at that. We partner with organizations. One thing I've always believed in, and I moved back to Alabama to develop this whole thing from Philadelphia. And I was the vice president of education at Founding Forward. And one of the things I always believed is partnering with other people.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in the history and civic space, we get a little jealous of each other or something, or we're afraid to promote what other people do. And I think that's horrible. I think everybody is important. And if we're all succeeding, then our citizens are better for it.
Mhm.
And so, I've partnered with the Medal of Honor Society, Retro Report. Mount Vernon just came down and did a big thing with me. And so, and of course, going now to this grant, one thing I wanted to do was have an experience for teachers. And I say experiences more than I do a program because I think you internalize experiences more.
Okay.
And so what I wanted to do here is one of a partner I've known for a long time, Sphere Education Initiatives.
Yeah.
He does a lot of great work in the space of, discussion and civics and how to really help teachers go about having difficult conversations in the classroom because we don't need to avoid that stuff. And so we partnered together to put on Framing Freedom. And so looking at our primary source documents and also obviously art pieces, because sometimes with the students, it's a lot easier and especially sometimes with an educator as well, it's easier to address a tough or difficult topic, sometimes through art more so than say a writing or just you're having a discussion over a quote.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you can see that same issue that you want to discuss in a historical painting of some sort, people are a little bit more open to talk about what's going on here. And then you can kind of slide it back to discussions of today. And so that was the whole purpose, is to really point out great pieces that the Library of Congress has on hand. We also used artwork from Mount Vernon itself, because I did a session over perseverance and so forth like that, looking at different art pieces and how people use art to really get across a message, you know. And one of the things I think is always important when you're trying to do that is like, okay, how do I connect this with the kids, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's easier connecting with the teachers or whatever. But with the kids, for instance, we looked at our founding documents and a lot of our earlier artwork. And one of the things I had teachers that do, I said, hey, look at some of this artwork right here. Okay. What do you notice in the commonalities? And again, it was an artwork, from around the American Revolution time and so forth of that nature. And they'd point out, well, clothing and you point out, well, that group looks angry. This group looks unhappy. This group doesn't have a lot of diversity in it. This group has more diversity in it, and so forth. I said, that's all great. I said, but did anybody notice the little dog in all these paintings?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, there is a dog in the painting. I said, this dog right here is not urinating. This dog is. But look who's urinating on, the British.
Yep. Is
This
that
is one of
yeah,
the
fact?
subtle hints of how an artist can put their personal feelings into a painting without coming right out and saying, hey, I can't stand these people. And so that would happen quite a bit. And I said, this is one of the great ways to get your kids really engaged in the artwork because every kid's going to find that interesting, right?
Oh, they're going to notice the dog before the teachers will.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is one of the things that when you can use art and really connect it to the experiences. And so during the whole day, we'd use the artwork, we'd use the primary source documents, and also have the teachers discuss ways they could use these elements in their classroom with their students.
Wow. Those are both incredible projects, and we are so proud to be, funding those and lending our support to the good work that you are already doing. And so we look forward to hearing more about that at the regional conference, of course. But let me ask you, and I'll just put this forward to both of you, and you can take turns or interact off each other if you wish. But you've already mentioned some of the types of art and the value of using art in terms of engaging participants in a way that they may not be engaged by traditional, more documentary-based primary sources. So I'm wondering what you have been able to observe from your participants, whether they're teachers or whether they're telling you about their student experiences, or whether they're the teacher trainers or whoever it is that you are working with to disseminate this material. Like, what has been their response like on the ground? Because we all have these really great ideas about how a project will go, and then we see how it actually does go on the ground, and but most of the time it's really like we might hear something that we weren't expecting, or we might just be really gratified to see how much something that we are so used to, we maybe take it for granted, but how it might be the first time a student or a teacher is actually hearing it and connecting with it, and it's going to change the way they teach or learn from here on out. So I'm just wondering, you have any examples, anecdotes, or any kind of general observations there on how these are actually playing out with your participants?
Yeah, I have I just finished it actually, the opportunity to do mini residencies unpacking the Declaration of Independence. And because it's the 250th birthday. About 260 kids participated, and we did a theater day, a visual art day, and a poetry day with this document, which is incredibly dense. And so I chunked it out for them, little sections to do. They did found poetry, so I cut little pieces and they made their own poems. And we also did erasure poetry, so they found a poem within the document, and they made their own flags using the
Was there a
red,
picture
white, and
of
blue.
those that
I
you
did the flag that
oh, you bring it
that's
up?
a flag from a second grader, and we talked about being united and being divided. What those two things make us feel like, and that's a second grader who had these words to say. And the flags we talked about symbols and what they mean, and what a flag is for, that it stands for you. So they made flags that stand for themselves, like what do they stand for? And but in unpacking that actual document, one of the kids said, unpacking the Declaration of Independence, one kid said, well, it says a lot about what they don't want, but it doesn't say much about what they do want. And I thought
That's
that
very
was
smart.
really interesting. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of it's a breakup letter. That's, how it's framed a lot of the time. But it is like when a teenager slams their door and says, I hate you, to their parent, kind of thing. So we were talking about, well, what is it you want? And so we that discussion turned into, in your ideal country, what are the things that you would stand for and that you would want? So it can open the doors. That sort of close reading can open the doors to discussion about, like Jeff was saying, it slides into the issues of today. You can talk about things that are still going on based on what happened so long ago. I mean, these are, some of these kids are 8-year-olds going 250 years ago. What? And a lot of them had no idea that we weren't always America. So yeah, they're just, oh yeah, they didn't know that that there had been, that, like Jeff was saying, there are things, there are events, and then consequences of those events, and everything
Yeah.
builds on itself to become what it is now. So just all of those things have been very interesting. And the erasure poem there, that was done by actually one of our cohort teachers. It's a little lower in the right there where you look inside the chunk of the document and create a new poem out of words that are already there in the document. So that's
Wow.
been very interesting.
I when I was putting this image into the newsletter, I didn't take a very, very close look to see what all the words were that,
Well, I have it
but
if you
now
want
I
me
can
to.
read it. It
Hmm.
says all equal with rights.
And then she separated out B,
Uh,
U, and T.
okay, that's what
But,
that
so
is.
she
But
says, but.
consent is the foundation of happiness.
I know. I know.
That's
It's fascinating what they come
that's
up
really
with.
cool. And I love the connection to the current day, this idea that laws are made, we're supposed to consider laws to be above all the people, but they were still hammered out by people. And
Hmm.
sometimes they were changed many times by people in reaction to movements by people. And so I think that
Yeah.
might help students realize that it's their own actions that they have the power to actually
Right.
participate in these movements that can have some sort of impact on what laws are created or amended. And otherwise, they just feel completely dislocated
Right.
and they feel like they have no power in the system. So,
And the interesting thing too is when they are doing art, when they are expressing themselves, they can often discover voices that they didn't know that
yeah.
they had, or opinions they didn't know they had, based on having the time to actually use an issue and express yourself through art. So, like Jeff was saying about the dog urinating, that's a political statement that artist is making. Most art is a reaction to whatever's going on in your surroundings politically. It's a way to, yeah, express what you're feeling about the world around you. So,
I'm gonna bring up, I have to look for it first, but I'm gonna bring up one of those dog things, uh, because it may not be exactly the one that you had in mind, Jeff, but we have used these before in some of our workshops. Um, and it is just okay, let me see if I can share my screen now. So this is one of the political cartoons that immediately comes to my mind with the dog urinating on this mock funeral procession, which is the funeral of the Stamp Act, which, of course, this is one of the things that leads up to the American Revolution. This was done in 1765. So this is even before the Declaration of Independence. Um, and and even for us as historians, we started noticing the dog appear in a lot of these images, like the famous engraving by Paul Revere of the Boston Massacre. There's a little dog in there. And at first we're like, why is there a dog there? Wouldn't it have been scared away? But no, the dog is symbolic, like you said. The dog is the way for the artist to convey their own loyalty or opinion. And so that was something that we learned through the process of looking at these primary sources as well. So anyway, I just had to share that with our viewing audience who may not be as familiar with what you're referring to. And I'd be happy to share any more images that might come to mind while we're talking. But Jeff, if you'd like to go ahead and talk about some of the reactions that you've gotten.
Well, yeah. We could have spent the whole time just showing those kind of images with the dogs on it today.
Yeah.
The so I wrote my first kids book came out called Oscar Visits Valley Forge, which has a lot of imagery in it and everything like that, and it has a pug in it, and he's the main character. And so when we looked at perseverance during this time, we looked at some of the imagery of the book and the people at Valley Forge, and how different groups with different thoughts and came from different places all made a difference in one location. right? So we would use that imagery and talk about what those people were doing. And I challenged them. I said, hey, if you get the book, which they all got it for this thing, take it back and use it with your kids and see what they think and so forth like that. And some of them emailed me about, hey, it's gone very well. They really enjoy that. But the other thing I said, one thing I want you to do, and we went over this, was like, for instance, Molly Pitcher is in the book. Okay, so a lot of people don't know she was at Valley Forge. She becomes more famous for Monmouth, and so forth like that. But she was actually at Valley Forge. And so I say, you have the imagery of the book, but then pull up a real painting of Molly Pitcher, right? Uh, Pull up Baron von Steuben, and an amazing immigrant that came into this country that added so much, and our American army wouldn't be what it was and is today without him. Look at the imagery in the book, talk about it, and so forth, what's saying, but then pull up a real painting,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things that also helped, I would do this little through the presentation, we did this little campfire special. I have these campfire specials. It's not part of the necessarily part of the main presentation, but I think it's important to add this because some of the kids find this interesting and it builds background into making the painting more interesting. For instance, March to Valley Forge. One of the most famous paintings out there. It's enormous. And if you've seen it, it's Washington sitting on this horse, the soldiers marching by. Again, probably one of the most famous paintings out there, maybe one of the top two in connection with Valley Forge. Okay. And so the artist, William Trago,
This one?
oh, let's see. Yes. Yes. So that's it right there. And so William Trago, a matter of fact, if you go to the and again we don't have to right now, but when we use that image, we also went to the Museum of the American Revolution, and that may be where it's from right now. But they also have a link on
Yep.
there. Oh, it is from the okay, great place by the way. They also have a link on there where I don't know if it's on that page or not below, but then it goes piece by piece of the painting itself. And
Oh,
so the teacher can use that yeah, it's right there. Yeah, it's right there in the middle.
neat.
Right. And so we pull up the painting, but we also pull that aspect up, and then you can learn about the aspects of it and so forth of that nature, what's going on. Have the kids discuss that obviously before you pull this up, and then to
Oh,
see, what they're thinking.
right.
But the other thing is, I said, hey, you want to know something deeper about this? Okay, it's about people, right? But why did this person paint this? Okay, so then we dig into William Trego, and William Trego is very interesting. This painting was done in the late 1800s. A lot of times, we try to fall back on our history and say, hey, what did it really mean to us? And
Mm,
a lot of times, imagery and paintings comes from future times of how we
yep,
look back on a past event. Very
exactly.
seldom are they done right then.
Right, because
And
there
I,
wasn't like a traveling painter going
exactly,
along with the troops.
there's not a traveling
Wait,
painter, right?
stand still. I gotta get every single one of you.
Right. So it's like I always too, and I think one of the most interesting things is that if you did this painting right then compared to somebody that did it 100 years later,
Yeah,
what would the difference be?
dirtier.
Right? And so one of the things I said, William Trago, I said, now look, he did this painting uh, in Philadelphia. I get the name right. I think it's the Philadelphia Arts Council or the Philadelphia Art Institute or something. But they did a national contest, right? For years and years and years, they'd have this painting contest all the way up into the 1960s. But this was done in 1883, and William Trago only did it because he wanted to enter this contest to win some money,
Oh
right?
my
So
goodness.
he entered this contest, and the judges considered none of the paintings that were done considered worthy of first or second. He got third place. And of course, with America, hey, what we do in America, he sued. He sued and said, "Look, I should get first because I got third. Nobody else finished first or second." Eventually, a judge threw it out, and he had to live with it. But he really didn't live long enough to see how famous his painting would become.
And he had he was impaired.
Yes.
He
Yes,
painted it
exactly.
impaired. So yes, he should have
Really?
gotten first place.
Yes, and you can tell, and that some of that goes into how he would write his name and stuff of that nature. It's very
Oh,
true.
okay. Yeah, down here.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating story. And I mean, I find that a lot of people, when they go on the Library of Congress website and they look something up, or they go somewhere else to look for a portrait or painting or an illustration, it is often from a later generation. And so the question is, okay, maybe this isn't a primary source for this actual event, but it is definitely a primary source for how we remember it and how we want to imagine that it went. And so, how does this talk about and you have to have kind of hindsight in order to tell a story about, well, what was the real message here? And I love that you have a whole workshop based around perseverance. I actually was lucky enough to be able to go to Valley Forge once. Yeah, I got dragged to Philadelphia and I was like, well, we have to go to Valley Forge then. And so we did. And yeah, exactly. It's really hard for us to imagine the conditions that people just persevered through. Like, nowadays everything is filtered, well, not everything, but a lot of things are filtered through screens, and that really diminishes our ability to appreciate the suffering and the patience of other people, as Sam was talking about. And so I love how you can really bring that out through paintings, because even the process of painting takes perseverance and patience and just time. And but that was the visual world that people lived in before photographs became omnipresent. And so there's a reason why our images of the Revolutionary era are in this medium. um, this was news for them. Like, this political cartoon here was news. And so today we would do like a meme, a snarky meme, and post it to social media, and that would be the equivalent, I suppose, of this political cartoon. Yeah. Okay, well, that's really great. And so I did want to ask you all a bit about kind of your experiences with the Southern region. There's Don't worry if you have any kind of negative criticism here, that we're all friends. But I know that Sam, you had worked before you knew about the regional grants because you had worked previously with our the regional grant that used to cover
TPS in general. And it wasn't
before.
me. It wasn't me. It
Okay,
was Kid Smart. It was awarded
okay,
to
okay.
Tiana Nobile.
Was
And
it a
then there was one to Stephanie Harriger years ago that
was it
they
a
did.
regional grant or a
I
direct?
have I do
Okay.
not know, but I know
So you would
that
have been
they
part of
were
well, you're in Louisiana. You would have been part of as was Alabama and Tennessee, both Midwestern
a
region.
different, right, a
Yeah,
different region.
yeah.
And that was, as I say, years ago. And they
That
were
was a long
also doing small learning groups with teacher cohorts,
Okay,
teaching with primary sources
okay.
using art. So
So you had known about it through that kind of long kind of history that you had. Jeff, how did you find out about the Southern region and figure out how to apply for one of these grants?
Well, it's very interesting. So before moving back down to Alabama to build this thing, like I said, I was up in Valley Forge and everything, and I bring people in, and there was a gentleman I got to know, Gregory Cook, African American gentleman, and his mom was a Black Rosie.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Okay, and a lot of times people never know about the Black Rosies. And we used to, and I love telling stories. And so we got to know each other a little bit. And he came and did something else because we was doing a World War II thing, a seminar, and he did something there. And I said, hey, if we can ever do something else together, he said, well, matter of fact, I got a grant through the Library of Congress teaching primary sources. And so then he came there and did the whole thing over. And if you haven't seen his documentary, over the story of the Black Rosies. It's
Okay.
exceptional, and I would highly recommend watching it and everything. And so I started, obviously, I've dealt with the Library of Congress for years, but I've never really worked with the teaching primary sources. And so after that, I started digging into it. And I thought, you know what? I need to do a grant sometime. And so this was the perfect opportunity to do that down there. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. We had for about 16 years we had a direct teaching with primary sources grant with the library, and we knew about the regional programs. There were only three up to a couple years ago, but we had never gotten one ourselves. And but we had, interacted with the regional grant directors at different meetings throughout the years and gotten to know them that way. But man, do I appreciate the work that they've been doing so much more now,
Mhm.
that we are also doing regional grants ourselves. But one of the reasons why the Library of Congress split the nation from just three regions to six was that the regional programs were noticing that they weren't able to reach into all the different states quite as equally, or with the same kind of response. And so it was basically with that in mind to be able to better reach, all the different constituencies of our nation, that they split it into six regions instead. And so I think it does make sense to have a southern region. And it's still kind of hard for us to travel and to reach into all the different places. But you are now helping us disseminate this program in your corners and among your widespread professional networks. And so we're still trying to get the word out. But we're happy to have such good representation in Louisiana and Alabama. Um, and okay, well, let's just say one more question. So, if you have any kind of takeaways from doing this particular project, that I know you're probably getting close to wrapping up here pretty soon, what would be some of your major takeaways from doing it through this grant and doing it in the format that you chose?
Um,
You both look very thoughtful.
it's true because what's interesting is you're building the plane as you're flying it. That's what I've found is that when there's it's beautiful and scary at the same time. So you've got resources to try the things you want to try and see if kids respond and see if it's working. But you also have the pressure of, I've got a grant, so I have to deliver. And I think during this cycle, what I realize is the delivery of the work that's getting done, the learning that's happening, the aha moments that the kids are having, the joy, the happy, the fun they're having. I think is worth it, and the things that I'm learning about how to use resources, what resources are better than others, what students how to get in a small chunked way that scaffolds. Having the time. That's what's been nice about this is that, I have time to do. It's not I don't have to do this in a 1 month or one semester thing. There's time to formatively assess. There's time to adjust things. There's time to listen to the kids and do it differently in the next class, and to listen to the teachers and see what worked for them or what might be better next time. So I think it's both. There's pressure and there's time, which is nice. I can't. It's beautiful and scary at the
That
same time.
makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I really appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think Sam's right on, and those points are very valid, and I think, and learning about those resources, man, I tell you, the Library of Congress has so many resources that you can almost become overwhelmed, you know.
Almost.
And so it's like, so you really have to have an idea of exactly what you're looking for. Uh,
Right.
it's kind of like going to the grocery store. If you don't have a shopping list, I mean, you just all of a sudden you ended up all kinds of stuff in your baggie you're not going to use or you really don't want or need.
Good
And that's what
analogy.
and that's what happens. So you have to be prepared. And I think the other thing with that is doing this type of grant, working from we had people that just pretty much handled the grants. So me doing this one was actually probably the first one I've just written on my own. And so it was very important to keep asking for help. Never be afraid of ask for help. And the folks there at MTSU were outstanding. Antoinette, Kira, you, everybody's just
Oh
outstanding.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
They
just
yeah.
outstanding. And our folks at Troy, I got to give a shout out to Paula Carlson, who's the grant person at Troy, just outstanding. And so without all these people and giving thoughts and advice and stuff of that nature, it would not have happened. The workshop and experiences with the teachers was the easy part,
Yes.
right? It's everything
Totally
else
agree.
but don't be afraid to ask for
Mm.
don't be afraid to ask questions, and make sure you're digging into as much as you can and streamline as much as you can.
Yeah. Now, thank you for your kind words. I'm a content person, but my fellow staff members here are just amazing at trying to handle the administrative questions, the budget questions, keeping everybody on track. I have to ask them stuff all the time. We're constantly asking our grants department stuff all the time and the Library of Congress. And so if we don't immediately have an answer for you, we will find that answer for you and we will work through it together because we are also building the plane while we are flying it, to use Sam's analogy. Well, I want to thank you both so much for giving your time this afternoon to joining us and for submitting your Q&As for our newsletter this month. And you are welcome to, if you need to log off and be somewhere else, you're welcome to do that, or you're welcome to stay on and help me enjoy Joshua's presentation on the Mormons and migration, which also features an artwork that he will also bring attention to. Um, he's worked very hard on this, so he knows more about this that he has time to share this afternoon. But I'm gonna actually, let me see. I'm gonna enable my, okay. So Joshua, you should be able to show your screen. Are you talking or are you just moving your mouth? I can't hear you. Okay. Yeah, you go ahead and take that off. You're in that room all by yourself.
Yeah, I'm dishing the headphones here. But yeah, okay. So I'm just gonna figure out where my
Go to the,
share,
yeah, the share along the bottom.
yeah, and then share my screen. Here we go. Share.
All right.
So I'm gonna start over here on my nifty little uh presentation. But thank you all both for presenting. Oh, I guess I need to share. It won't let me share the double screen. So let me share again just my PowerPoint. But thank you all. It was nice listening to both of you talk. I have connections to both states actually. My family's from uh Louisiana actually. My dad is from New Orleans, and then my grandfather went to Miles College in Alabama, so I have a connection both fronts. Am I good? Is everything showing? Or okay. Well, this was a new thing for me. I deal with churches and other things, but learning about the Church of Latter-day Saints was very interesting experience. So I just want to start real quick with some history. These are just some sources off of the Library of Congress. This first top left-hand corner is just the front copy page of the Book of Mormon, which Joseph Smith wrote. And actually, I'll just do a quick dive and we'll keep it real short. But so one of the popular misconceptions that most people don't realize about the Church of Latter-day Saints or the Mormons is that they're actually originated in New York. So they went from New York and then traveled down to Ohio. From Ohio, they went down to Missouri. Then from Missouri, they crossed over to Illinois, and then they went all the way to Salt Lake City, the Salt Lake Valley. So that's one of the big portions. And this second art piece isn't like it wasn't in the actual date, but it's a legacy primary source to sort of show how Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery was one of the other first followers. They were sort of venerated by the church. So these are just two great sources to sort of show. This one, of course, is 1829, so it's in the moment, and then this one's 1898, so it's sort of after they settled in Salt Lake City. And so, since we were talking about art, I wanted to do a quick little plug here. One of the things that I learned during my vast research is that the Mormons are very good at architecture. So this is the Great Mormon Tabernacle in Salt Lake City, in 1868. This is a photo from the Library of Congress. This is where their choir, their famed Mormon choir, would be in. So that is one aspect. Yes, it does look like a sandwich. I do not know exactly what the plan was here for the construction of the building, but I just thought, what's one quick building that I can show that's like, oh, that's cool. So I went with the Grey Mormon Tabernacle. And so the other artwork is just a preserved log structure in Wyoming that is still standing as of September 18th. I haven't really checked back on that, but as of September 18th, 2025, it is still standing. So this is one of the many structures that you would find along the trail uh, after they left from Nauvoo, Illinois, and then they just went west.
I was just going to say, does Santa
Maybe,
Claus live there?
yeah, I'm confused as well because the date says September. I don't know. Maybe.
Can you click on it and zoom in for us?
Yeah, let's
I know
let's
that means kind of
go.
a little bit of a shift in sharing your screen, but can you
Uh,
oh, it's gonna
uh,
take a while.
yeah, it's trying its best here. The internet's fine for its dear life, poor thing. But eh, let's see. Are we? Yeah, it's struggling.
I'm sorry. Don't worry about that.
We're good. We're good. We have the Santa Claus hat. We're feeling good. Good vibes. But yeah, that was another. There's many more. Just log structures, churches, other buildings. It's it's just insane how the Church of Latter-day Saints has influenced culture, especially now because Ancestry.com, that's a product of theirs that a lot of people use. And so this is my start of my lesson plan. So my lesson plan, I was actually reading in one of my classes, uh, one of David Lowensall's works, and he was talking about how a lot of kids didn't were just taught basically like a black and white history. Uh, it was a memory history and memory. It was one of the editorials for the public historian that he did in '97. But he was talking about basically about how kids were taught uh basically how they were taught like a strict black and white, and they weren't really taught how to question. So one of the things I wanted to do through this lesson plan is give the teachers the ability to just sort of like spark that question mindset. So first, we're going to actually look at this lovely map that was made in 1899 called the Route of the Mormon Pioneers from Nauvoo to Great Salt Lake. And this was supposed to be their journey, February 1846 to July 1847. So this is the map. I'm sort of tempting fate if I click on this and it doesn't load on the other page, but hopefully we can see. So yeah, so this is a quick little just guide of it. So presumably we have the start of the map and then we go westward. So there's a lot of just complex little small things that teachers can go and pick out. But specifically for this, I had some questions like the year of production, how does that influence the map? Because the year of production is 1899. They had arrived to Salt Lake already. So it's like, okay, why would they choose this year to produce? So that's one of the why questions that I wanted to give teachers the ability to do. And then why would the Mormon descendants want to create this map? So we're talking about like veneration and like sort of how they memory studies and other ways to just like, okay, why is why does it look dark, why does it look rugged, why does it this that questions like that. And then the last one is just how does the map present the West, because as we see with this map, it makes the West look a little scary, um, but also, there's a notable lack of Native Americans from this map. So it's like what
Well,
thing?
there's some teepees and you can see a figure from behind. Is that supposed to be a Native American or can
I
we not
guess that's
tell?
supposed to be like, but it's not. I was more going for like there's barely any figures. You see the
Yeah,
settlers here. There's
yeah,
barely
yeah,
any like people, Native
yeah.
American people. So are we saying that the West is uninhabited, that manifests destiny? What are we saying when we do that type? So that's one. And then part two, actually, I know this one's gonna load because I already have this one pulled up. But so the National Park Service, they have a new Mormon trail that's an interactive map. And so this one, they start, of course, let's zoom in here. They start, this is right where Nauvoo is. So they cross the river, and then Nauvoo's here, and then we just go along west. And they have all these little markers that give you a look at the different stops. Pioneer Trail Museum. And so this was just so this is supposed to give um a different view to contrast a more present view. So the questions I was thinking of for this section were like, why did the National Park Service create like a national trail like that to document the trail? Like, why would they do that? So more present day, what language do they use to describe the trail? So if we go to the, I'm lazy, I'm just gonna pull it back up. We see that they have this interactive map. And so so the language I was talking about was how they have Mormon Pioneer National Historic Trail. We see a lot of language related to just trails and then land, river crossings. And so what are they trying to highlight in their narrative was something for me. And then, of course, how does this map present the West? So this map presents. I'm just going to load it again. I don't care. This map presents the West in sort of a more neutral, but still with a bias uh, way, where also it's not as artistic. So it's topographical. There's some elevation, as you can see. There's bodies of water. When you get to the Salt Lake Valley, you can sort of see the centers and the parks and everything. So so it's more for an educational purpose. And then so I pretty much also covered what other features does this map add already. So there's that component. But then we have the art questions. So the art questions that you could do the plan was, let me pull this up. My bar is hiding this. Uh, oops, sorry. Okay. Look, my computer's being fun. Anyways, real quick.
This is going back to the 1899 map, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm trying to
You-
pull up the 1899. So this is one. I have them pulled up side by side, but it wasn't. Okay. So I'm gonna go uh to the so this is the
Mhm.
one map and here's the other. But yeah, so how do these scenes fit? Okay, let me refocus. Oh, so yes, okay. So this is the first one that you would look at. You would do the same thing, but then it would be what scenes are depicted. So we have our, let me get a bigger,
They were
I love
circling the
computers.
wagons.
So we have wagons, teepees. This looks to be a little settlement that I assume is Nauvoo. Trees. Uh, I'm oh, here we go. This is the Great Salt Lake. There we go. It's not really as great, but it's here. Um, and so
Maybe that's a
stuff like
depiction
that.
of it at the bottom left. Because the along the bottom you can see the kind of the nature scenes as the pioneers would have seen them, maybe.
Yeah,
Very rugged.
very rugged. So that's sort of the idea.
It's
Um,
beautiful though. The map is beautiful.
yeah, and then some of the same sort of previous questions. How do these scenes fit in with our ideas of pioneer trails westward? Because this may be a little too much the for the younger kids, but I still remember the Oregon Trail video game. I played it when I was a little younger. So like stuff like that. Um, and how does the artist draw attention to the difficulties of the journey? So again, we're seeing the wagons going through, and it's depicted, at least in my opinion, as sort of a rough,
Yeah.
rugged journey that was hard. And sort of one of the themes I picked up on is how we're going away, quote unquote, from civilization because you do have the teepees and the little settlement, but there's no settlements out
Right.
west. So it's going away from sort of quote unquote civilization as another theme. So those were just some of the oh yeah, how does the artist draw attention to? Already said that. Some of these questions repeat a little bit, but it's sort of to just reinforce that it's okay to question and to ask why. And so that's what I wanted to do for this source set and this lesson idea to sort of help teachers out, just give them an easy way to use art and to look at how people present stuff to then look at history and say, hey, there may be something more than meets the eye. So yeah, that's what I did.
Thank you so much, Joshua. And he did mention that he's also creating a primary source set that has a lot more primary sources and more historical background on the Mormons. And when that is done, it's going to be posted to our TPS Southern Region website, and we'll have an announcement about that and an upcoming TPS Teachers Network post, as well as an upcoming newsletter. So I want to thank everybody very much for your participation. I do want to go back to our final slides. Oh, which requires me to share my screen again one last time so that the viewers at home can get this QR code because you can get professional development credit for watching this webinar if you go to this form and fill it out. It only takes a few minutes. And so if you are watching this on our YouTube channel, you can just download it from there. And then I believe the last slide is just inviting everybody to come back next month where we're going to have a new episode looking at some more of our partners and exploring the theme of the civil rights movement and primary sources associated with that. So that is all that we have. Thank you so much and see you next time.